Hey Rick, happy Friday.
Hey, Carlos, how's it going?
It's going great. It's going great. Excited about another episode 29. So, somebody just in our last episode commented how or commanded us for our commitment to keep producing this. Yeah,
Do we take that as a compliment or, wow, I'm surprised you guys are still
yeah. I'm
doing
surprised
this?
you're still doing this. I don't know, but look, we're committed to. You know well that content is a long game, and we're not only producing it for the sake of producing it, but also to learn, right? Because we're learning. This is our very first time trying this format, and we're learning lots, right? So we need to, like I tell the team, we need to eat our own dog food. So we need to create great content, and I don't pretend to claim that this is great content yet, but we'll make it great. Hopefully, as we go. So it's been a great learning curve. So I appreciate the people that is coming along for the ride, and yeah, I love the comments. So please keep sending us some comments, and feedback is very much welcome. So with that, for today, we have three segments, but one segment is going to be a big one with some sub-segments. So today, again, we're changing the format in terms of how the segments, the order of the segment. So we're going to start with a tip, and we're going to close with a tip. And in the middle, we're going to talk about news. So the first step is how to onboard clients. So this is dedicated for agencies, but it also could apply for clients that are or companies that are onboarding writers or a content team. So we're going to share some tips with all of you folks about that. Then we're going to talk about the drama between Google and OpenAI, and within that, there's sub segments to that segment. So we're going to talk about a very interesting article about the man that killed Google search. Maybe some of you have read the article in the past. So very controversial article, very interesting. Also, some of the rumors about OpenAI launching a search engine, and also decline in search in Google market share and search, and also some of the licensing deals and legal suits against OpenAI. So there's a lot going on in that drama saga between Google and OpenAI. They're not necessarily together, but they end up always in the same pot. So anyway, let's get going. So Rick, what do you have for us in terms of tips on how to onboard content clients if you have an agency? And well, we'll adapt to if you're just a brand that is creating content, want to onboard freelancers or a content team. So yeah, let's please walk us through that, Rick.
Well, like you know, Carlos, I spent a lot of time lately developing resources for our agency partners to help them in all aspects of content marketing or content production. And one of those is on onboarding clients. But before anyone checks out, like Carlos promised, this process can be used when you're building out your writing teams or recruiting writers um, to help ensure a smooth onboarding, to help ensure that you get what you're looking for right off the bat. In our experience, Carlos, we know, right? We've managed hundreds and hundreds of content clients over the years. They don't always go well. So, what I'm about to share with you is pretty much how we do things. And it's built from lots of mistakes, from getting together and finding out why could we not win with this client? Why did this not work out? And how can we change our process to avoid having this happen again? So what you're getting is the result of years of our pain. Um,
Yeah, only
so
only 13 years of going through pain.
yeah, yeah. So it's a process that works. It really does. It's made to address um, that bumpy onboarding period where you're trying to get alignment with the client. Um,
I
if you
think
fall,
uh,
go ahead.
before going into that, Rick, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I think what is important for the audience to know that one of the things that we have learned about content projects that don't work, I would say probably 8 out of 10 times the problem was at the beginning. The problem was in the onboarding or the client qualification or the client discovery. So we either didn't understand what the client wanted, or if it is an agency, the agency didn't understand what their client wanted. and the onboarding wasn't capturing some of those problems. So that's what's so important: the pre-work or the pre-production work, which is the onboarding, the planning, and putting all the fundamentals together before starting to produce content. So that's why this segment is so important for some of you to understand how to really set yourself up for success, or how to set up your clients for success if you're launching a content program. Please continue, Rick.
No, you're absolutely right. If you do this well, you're going to end up delivering content to your client that is much closer to target right off the bat. You're going to have an easy way to make the hopefully minor adjustments that you need to make. Your writers and editors are going to have the resources that they need to execute, and you're going to be able to scale up. And you're going to just skip over that whole part where your client is upset and disappointed, and ultimately they fire you because you can't deliver on what you said you could. So what I want to talk about is the 4-phase process to onboarding a client. And this all starts after the sales process, after you've got a signed agreement and you're ready to transition it over to your production team. And it starts with what we call the working session. In the working session, I'm going to give you a few tips here. This is all about alignment. Okay. And I talk with my team a lot about the knock test, Carlos, and this was an actual study done in Stanford, I think back in 1990. And what they did was they took a bunch of people and they put them in 2 groups, knockers and listeners. And they had the knockers tap out the rhythm to well-known songs, and they had the listeners try to guess what those songs were. Prior to doing this, they asked the knockers, like, predict what percentage are they going to get right? And the prediction was 50%. But in reality, they guessed 2.5% of the songs right.
Yeah.
And that just illustrates how something can be very clear in your head, in your client's head. They feel that they are giving you the information they need and to get alignment with what's in their head. But oftentimes there's a disconnect. And the working session is where you really dig deep to make sure that you don't fall victim to that knock test. It's and we have decks and we have agendas that can help you with this working session. It's designed to get all the granular information you need about the content. It also covers things like cadence and volume and the logistical things you need to know. But really, it's about getting that alignment, getting that vision that your client has of what their finished product looks like, so that you get it in your head. What's really important about the working session is to make sure all the key stakeholders are there. And by key, I mean key to production. The person who's going to be sending in the orders to you needs to be there. The person who's going to be creating the content briefs should be there. The person who's going to be evaluating your deliverables needs to be there. Really, you don't need anybody else from a production standpoint. That pretty much covers it. You want to discuss and establish the content goals. And by goals, I mean your SEO goals, your business goals for the content, and the goals that you feel your reader will have for reading this content. That all needs to be talked about, along with style, structure, voice, especially voice, all the granular punctuation stuff that falls under style, linking, CTAs, everything that has to do with the content. How you want intros, like what approach are you taking with your intros? Are we doing, we want to focus on stats and surprise, or we want to weave storytelling in from the end? Like all of this should come out in the working session. 2 more tips for working sessions. So don't ever punt anything. This is the time to make decisions. And oftentimes you'll find that a client doesn't have an opinion on something. Well, it could be big or small. Now's the time to make a call. So take the role of being an advisor here if you're working with a client. If they don't really care about perspective, consider, first person's really great for this, but where you're doing this type of thing, let's keep it to second. That would be my recommendation. Don't just take a lack of an answer on your client's part as we could do whatever we want. Because first, that'll lead to inconsistencies in your deliverables. And second, you may not actually do the right thing. So make decisions on the working session call. Don't punt anything down the road. And finally, when you're through that working session, be sure to summarize everything you discussed in writing. We have a template for that on our site. And send it to your client and get them to agree that everything is correct, or let you know where there's confusion so that you can make adjustments. So that ends phase one. Phase two, resource preparation. Take everything you've learned in that working session, put it into a writer-facing project brief. Here's where you're going to now take what you hope is your clear understanding of the content and put it in a way that helps the writers get there. This is their resource. It's if you've seen my segments before on project briefs, content briefs, project brief is the overarching, applies to everything we write on this project document. Use a template on our site, create this out. It should cover all the SEO, the linking, the CTAs, the voice, everything that applies to all the content should be in the project brief. It should come from what you learned on that working session. Take a content brief. Plenty of templates out there. We have one for you. Often they're one size fits all, but tweak it. Tweak it to suit your needs for the content you're about to produce. Get that set up. Build out your workflow. How are you going to address all the different needs of the content? If there's image sourcing involved, how's that going to get done? Who's going to do it? This is all done in the preparation phase. So figure out your workflow, create your resources. Lastly is to define those clear roles and responsibilities. Before you move into the next stage, you want to make sure that everybody knows who is doing what, when they need to do it by, and when they can expect to receive, or for it to be their turn, their step up. Once you have all the resource and preparation done, you go into team building. This is where you find writers and editors who are ideally suited to produce the type of content, the content type, and the subject matter that you're about to create. Most writers are not specialists, but they have their strengths and weaknesses. And we've talked about this a million times, Carlos. It's not a one size fits all when it comes to writers, right? You can have an outstanding general copywriter who can't write marketing copy to save their lives. That's very common. They're two different disciplines. So build out your team and train them on your project brief specifically. Don't train them on anything that isn't in your brief or part of your workflow or in your content briefs. The key here is to make sure that they make no assumptions when they go to execute in the next step. They should be able to produce what you're looking for 100% on target based on the project brief, the content brief, and the workflow that you've put together. And then when you're done with that, you move into the fourth stage, which is calibration. Calibration is when you do just a small set of orders. And really what you're testing here is your workflow to make sure it's working, the writer's alignment with your vision, making sure that the resources you've provided are leading to the content you've envisioned. And then when you deliver it to the client, you're testing to make sure that your vision is aligned with theirs. So create the content, get it delivered, get face-to-face with that client and pick it apart. Give them a couple days to review it, but get on a call with them and pick it apart. What did we do well? What didn't we do well? And identify the areas in your resources or your workflow that weren't quite right, that need to be tweaked to correct that mistake. If you did well, if it's on target, start to ramp up. Keep training, depending on how far you have to scale up. I mean, if you're doing really high volume stuff, don't go from calibration right to full launch to full production. Train up another small set of writers and then more so that you gradually reach the desired throughput. It's a slower start, and sometimes that'll aggravate a client, but it's really in their best interest because we'll get to that throughput, but they'll do so getting the quality they're looking for. There's nothing worse than suddenly having 150 articles that need revisions because nobody had the time to review them and you scaled up too fast. So those are really the four steps. And Carlos, they work. We onboard clients all the time. We have smooth onboardings more often than not, and we're really getting on target quickly to what the client wants. And it's about that alignment. Now, I did promise that you could turn this around. Not all of you are working at agencies and onboarding content clients. Some of you are managing the content production at your own businesses. So how does this apply? Just take it and go through the same steps again. But whereas the working session is like an interview for an agency person who's working with a client, now the working session becomes a presentation. Have your writing team on there. Take that working session, rather asking the questions, you're now giving them every bit of information that's outlined in the deck you're using, which you can take from us on our resource page. But it'll walk you through everything that person needs to know to be able to hit the target for you. So there's your working session. Then work with them after to develop the resources they'll need. It's invaluable. You're going to have their input. They're going to have questions from the working session. You can create their resources customized to those questions so that they're perfectly clear. Again, you can do this with a small set of writers, and then it should be scalable to a larger set when you're done. I guess you can skip the team building part because you've already got a team that you've just presented this to, but then calibration still works. You put a small set of orders out to test their understanding of the workflow and the resources in the working session that you just presented to them. So it goes both ways, whether you're onboarding a client or onboarding a writing team. This process works, and it ensures that you will get to target much sooner, especially at scale, than you would with a less thorough process. Yeah. Anything to add to that, Carlos?
Well, if you're an agency, this is so important, right? I'm sure if you're an agency, you spend time onboarding your client for probably some of their work, for your SEO strategy, for your paid strategy, or whatever other services you're offering. But the content needs its own section, its own onboarding, and again, the magic happens in the pre-planning. Really, most of it, because with the right guidance, you can create great content. So don't skip the steps. And if you're doing it on your own for your own company, your own business, the working session can be even an internal group of people to kind of set the direction of where the content is going to go on and capture all those components of the strategy and the production process. So question to you, Rick, do we have the working session template ready, or is coming? I don't think it's on our page
It yet. Should be up next week. So by the time you're watching this, you can go to our website, www.cardcontent.com, click on resources. At the top, you'll see free content tools, I think. Yeah. And then there's a ton of resources. You'll find the 4 phases of onboarding infographic that gives you an overview of those phases I just discussed. You'll find a downloadable conducting effective working session guide, along with a working session deck, which I built myself and I'm pretty proud of. An agenda for the working session, a template for a working session summary, along with project brief templates and content brief templates. Everything you need to onboard it.
Everything you need to produce.
Everything.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, no, we're creating very, 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 very good resources. So check them out. They're totally free. And yeah, so hopefully you find it helpful. Okay, well, let's talk about drama in the search world.
We got the tea.
Yeah, drama, some drama, and then we'll talk about another tip, which is going to be how to conduct SME interviews. So, but before we get to the practical stuff, let's talk about the drama. So, that article, "The Man That Killed Search," that killed Google search,
killed Google.
Yeah. Very controversial article, came out 2 or 3 weeks ago, but we didn't have time to dissect the article last episode, but we'll talk a little bit about it today. So, what are your thoughts? What is this all about? The Man That Killed Google search. What is it? What is
it's
that about?
Scathing, Carlos. This writer, Edward Zitron, he left nothing on the table here. The man clearly had some opinions on what's been happening at Google, and he expressed them clearly in his article. Essentially, the article talks about going back to about 2019, where the seeds of mixing church and state started to sprout, where like Google had worked hard to keep search and money, search and ads separated. Back in 2019, they replaced a guy named Ben Gomes, who was really big on search quality. and not so much about the revenue, with a guy named Prabhakar Raghavan. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right. He was the VP of ads, and now he's VP of or senior VP of search, including search and ads and several other departments. Um, the author talks about something that happened in 2019 called a code yellow, which is basically something that Google uses to alert when
Something's
something
not going
bad,
right.
revenue's going to drop, and we don't think we can solve this, and it's
Yeah,
an
it's
all
the
hands on
equivalent
deck.
of DEFCON 1.
DEFCON one, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I don't want to get into too much detail, but basically, an update that came out in March of 2019 was expected to be one of their largest updates altogether. Actually, rolled back
Some
changes
changes.
made in Penguin, changes made in a 2018 update that suppressed spammy results from getting good rankings on search, and now suddenly these sites were getting content again, which means ad revenue for Google. And the position this article is taking is that this was a result of that code yellow, that Google sided with money over quality results and rolled back some of the good work they've done. And then that trend has continued, despite seeing things like helpful content, EEAT, things that sound like we're aiming for really good search results. The truth is, there's a lot of dissatisfied searchers and SEOs out there who don't understand some of the changes that have happened. Why UGC in the YMYL categories is outranking really good vetted content from medical professionals or financial
Yeah.
advisors. Instead, Joe from up the street who just posted on Reddit is getting prime placement on that. So a lot of unhappy people. You remember that we talked about this a couple months ago, that website House Fresh with the air
Yeah.
filters, who did that
Hmm.
whole thing and found that affiliates were getting better placement than, or fake reviews were getting better placement than real ones.
Hmm.
I saw an update on that last night, Carlos. That website, since then, their traffic is almost erased. It didn't get better for them shining a light here. It has gotten significantly worse.
No way.
There was an update that came out last week or so, but yeah, just saying
Wow.
again, these affiliates who are making false claims in their reviews or fake reviews are getting better placement. So just one example or another example of what's going on with Google and where it seems like money is mixing with search too much to the point that now we're getting bad search results. That kind of leads into what we want to talk about next, unless you want to talk more about Ed's article. I
No, I
recommend a
think
read.
I don't know.
It's
Yeah, it's fun to read. I think to give people context. So the writer of this article, he took some emails that were released as part of the Department of Justice antitrust case against Google, and kind of read the emails and made his own conclusions. So we all like a good old conspiracy theory. Again, I think it's an interesting piece. Again, I'm not going to defend Google, but I'm not going to also take the writer's side. I think there's probably some truth in between, right? There's some of it. I think what happens with there's pressure about growth, there's pressure about revenue, there's pressure about stock price. People start looking for ways to meet those masters, right? When the your master is the stock price or the revenue results, then you have to figure something out. And sometimes those decisions might be on the detriment of your users, and that's really the main claim here, that has been all these decisions have been no regard to the user, no regard for the quality of the search results. So I don't think, again, that's entirely true, but there might be some truth to it.
but
So yeah,
when you
interesting
feel
article.
like you've got
Anyway,
the when you feel like you've got the market cornered, it's probably easy to make those decisions that maybe are a detriment to your product and your customer, right? Like where are you going to go?
Yeah, that's true. Like after you have pretty much all the market. Like how much are you going to grow? Where are you going to grow? So yeah, tough spot. I mean, very nice problem to have. They have to have the market corner. Anyway, so yeah, but market share. Well, not the market as corner as has been thought. There was an article about the Google dropping their market share by about 10 points, mostly from the U.S. Again, taking it with a grain of salt because different people measure market share in different ways, in different points. So is it really 10% or is probably less? It's hard to gauge, but I think Google has been losing market share, or maybe we can see it the other way that others have been gaining market share. Not necessarily Google is losing it, but the others are doing also good things, so they're gaining some market share. So I don't know how to take this. I think Google has definitely lost a little bit of market share to Bing, and maybe even ChatGPT, and even Yahoo is kind of like the phoenix coming back from the dead,
Tripled,
and doing
tripled
some
their
good things.
global share. Uh,
Yeah, and I also think like it's not only those just direct competition from search engines, but like I mentioned, ChatGPT, but also social. There are people that spend a lot of time on social, and they're doing social networks are doing things to make sure that their users stay there. They don't have to go out to search for more information. So I think it's a combination of many things. And well, this I think the timing is poor because there's a lot of noise about quality results, right? Like there's a lot of people out there saying that the quality results have degraded, like you were mentioning about affiliate links and all that stuff. Despite all these improvements, I saw today a post from Lily Ray on LinkedIn talking about that Google claims that they deleted 45% of spammy results from the internet. I don't know, so much noise, but what are your thoughts on this market share thing?
I, don't know, I think there's something there, and I think there's blood in the water. So you're right. This data came from one source. I went and looked at. They're called stat counter, and I went and looked at past results. Not a lot of volatility in the reporting. Google has stayed pretty flat over the last couple of years. So I was looking to see like maybe there's a lot of up and down in their reporting, but no, no, it's been pretty consistent. Um, and it has shown that since August of last year, they've been dropping a fraction of a percentage each month. Half a percent, a third of a percent. Very, very slow decline. But April, they went from in the US 87% share to 81. So we're talking
Hmm.
a third of a point to half a point each month, and suddenly a full 6 point drop. Um,
Hmm.
I don't know. Is it an anomaly? It could be, but you've got a lot of unhappy people with the search results. You've got we've talked about people using non-traditional search like TikTok or social media um, to get the information they're looking for. We've talked about how, like my own personal preference, where I've started to adopt LLMs as a bit of a search engine because it'll customize its answer to my exact scenario. So, is this starting to snowball? Has the blood in the water led to sharks, right?
Hmm.
Um, and I think it has. So, OpenAI, they've been getting some licensing deals, right? Have you
Yeah.
heard about
Well,
that?
yeah. So you mentioned that they. I want to talk about the lawsuit. So you talk about the
Oh, you
licensing,
want
but
to
they
go to the
did a
lawsuits
license
next?
deal with the financial. Was it the Financial Times or who did it?
Financial Times. So,
Who was it? Yeah.
so OpenAI partnered with Financial Times. Financial Times has agreed to let them use their content for training their LLMs, which that's been happening quite a bit with most of the AI developers out there right now. They're making some partnerships and getting permission to train their LLMs. But that's not what's most significant about this Financial Times deal. The terms in it state that ChatGPT or OpenAI will attribute outputs to Financial Times, along with links,
Mm-hmm.
direct quotes from their content. This is search engine stuff. It's not just, we're going to pay them and they'll let us use their content. They're saying we will display your content in our output with links and attributes. That's a big deal. Uh, on the other side, they're also fending off some lawsuits that
Yeah.
I know you're looking to talk about.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think last week, a group of 8 traditional media publishing houses or 8 newspapers uh, sued OpenAI and Microsoft because of copyright infringement. So, and I think they're led by the New York Times. So, because of course the LMs are using their content, and even sometimes even content that is behind a paywall, right? Because that's not cool. Right? Like if you're, this is content that you're charging for, and then these guys are just using it blatantly. They're just
Maybe they have a
stealing your
subscription.
content. Yeah, pretty much. So, but they're using it to train and to produce results. So I think, of course, publishers are not happy about it. So they file a suit. The other thing that is they're claiming, so not only they're taking their content, also taking content behind the paywall. So sometimes they're the chatbot or ChatGPT is surfacing results that are pretty much fake as well, but attributed to them, which is even worse. So there was one case where AI claimed, or the AI chatbot claimed that the Denver Post had published research indicating that smoking could potentially cure asthma. A complete fabrication, the complaints say. So like these quirky, weird things. I think we'll see more of these legal suits, and I think my prediction is what OpenAI will probably partner with some major publications. They're always going to need content to train their models, right? And if there's no new content, they're going to fall out of relevancy. So if I read the tea leaves, and with this partnership with the Financial Times, I think what's going to happen is that they're probably going to try to make some of these partnerships or find some attribution, monetary attribution models to compensate the media publishers or the creators for their content. So interesting to watch this drama, how it unfolds. There, there's always when there's a disrupted technology, there's always stuff that is going to happen like this. So, but why this is important? Why do people care? Why would you care? And I'm talking to our audience is a lot of the content that we produce for some of you, or that you produce on your own, goes is distributed to these channels, right? It's distributed mostly to Google. So we need to think about, okay, what is the implication for us? And really, because we don't know yet. Well, one, we need to prepare for a world where search is powered by AI, and also we need to diversify our channels, right? I think we need to put more eggs in more baskets because there's so much volatility with the known channels or the traditional channels. So I think that's what matters for the audience, really. And yeah, we'll keep everybody appraised of how these things evolve and any tips and tricks that we have to deal with this. But it's at least it's entertaining to watch.
We got to talk about the rumor,
Any more
Carlos.
thoughts
We
about
got to
the
talk
the
about the
rumor?
rumor.
Oh, the rumor. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for keeping me
Yeah.
honest. Yeah. So what's the
So
rumor?
if you're one of our dedicated fans and you're watching this video, the minute it hits your inbox, you're only 24 hours away from what could be a major announcement. May 9th, OpenAI is supposed to have an announcement, and rumors are swirling that that they're going to launch their own search engine uh, on May 9th, or at least make the announcement that they intend to. These rumors are due to recently registering search.chatgpt.com, and then someone on Twitter had noticed security certificates for the same search.chatgpt.com. Sam Upman's on comments over the months, pretty clearly saying that he'd love to compete with Google if there's a way to do that. Um, and well, like we've talked, there's blood in the water. I think the public
Yeah.
is ripe for the picking. They might be looking or open to a new experience in searching. So if ChatGPT does launch their own search engine, expect something wildly different than what you get. You know, a handful of ads and 10 blue links from Google. This is going to be something else. I'm
Hmm.
really excited about it because it's something new and I like new things. But I'm also concerned, particularly what you just said. How are they going to solve the inaccuracy problem? You know, if they are crafting an AI response to your query, even with links to the source material, how can they be sure that what they are providing the searcher is accurate? Unless they do direct attributes of some sort, you know, some direct quotes from the content to answer your question, and then maybe a generalized AI response above it or below it or something where it's clearly this is the AI response. Here's content that you might find helpful. I don't know how they're going to do it, but I'm excited to see it, and we'll find out on May 9th.
Yeah, find out more on May 9th. So thanks for keeping me honest, Rick. Okay, well, let's close the episode with some quick tips to perform subject matter expert interviews. So what do you have for us, Rick?
Yeah, so subject matters experts, nothing new here, right? This is no longer cutting edge. It's almost standard practice for content production to make sure you got somebody who knows what they're talking about looking at that content. So we recently published an article that gives examples of subject matter expert questions that you can use in your interviews. And in reviewing this content, it made me think, hey, I want to talk to the audience and let them know that there's really two types of SME interviews when it comes to content production. There's the general SME interview, and there's more content specific SME interview. This article is built towards general SME interviews. So I wanted to share some thoughts on why general SME interviews are important. It's no big surprise, content specific interviews. There's some value in getting that fact checking part, but getting expert insights into your content through a content specific SME interview is a good idea. But general, like we don't have an article that we're waiting to write on this. Why is that valuable? I'm going to tell you what. Building out a library of expert interviews for your business leads to it's just the gift that will keep paying off long term. You can have a treasure trove of interview transcripts for ideation, for your writers when they're creating your content, for your brief creators. Imagine you sit down, you spend 30 to 60 minutes with anyone at your company who knows what they're doing, right? Like none of us are walking around with expert on our name tags, right? So even our company, Carlos, right? You have a lot of things to say, things that you specialize in, that you know in this industry. I have a lot to offer. Our SEO has a lot to offer. Our strategist has a lot to offer. Our project managers have a lot to offer. Over time, if we're sitting down with them, just 30 to 60 minutes and doing an interview, asking questions specific to their field within our business, specific to their role and what they do, we build this up. You now have just this huge resource for ideation, for gathering quotes, for your content writers to go in and get, like, if it's all transcripts, it's searchable. Let me get some insights. Let me get some quotes. Here it all is, and it's uniquely yours. Writers are doing this. They're doing it in Google with everybody else's content. You're ending up with content that sounds just like everybody else's content. So build your own resource. It doesn't take as long as you think it might. To get this information together, and the results are storytelling, for people from your company, insights and opinions that are your company's insights and opinions, ways that you do things, new angles. You find so much in that type of content that can make the difference, right? It'll differentiate the content you're publishing from your competitors. It'll make it unique. That's how you get that information gain. And it's really a fairly low effort exercise to do it. And an interview sounds like a lot, but it's really not. You can hire a freelance interviewer, somebody who knows how to come back with follow-up questions, who knows how to prepare for an interview, or you can do them yourself. Um, but it's fairly low effort and the payoff's really great. So real quick, some ways to help prepare: identify the goals and needs, think through the questions ahead of time, ask a lot of open-ended questions, ask questions that lead the interviewee to give stories rather than just direct factual answers, things that have happened in their experience. So what I'd like to do now is just give you a kind of a sampling of the types of questions you'll find in our article. These ones are built to the general SME, and I'll also show you a few that are more for that content specific, because if you're still just SME reviewing for accuracy, you're missing out on a lot of insight and differentiation opportunity. So some general SME interview questions. Let's say we're going to interview our SEO, Carlos, for a more long-term, we want to put this in our library of knowledge. We might want to say, what drew you to the field of SEO, and how has your background shaped your approach to search engine optimization? We might ask, can you describe a pivotal experience or project in your career that significantly influenced your SEO strategies? Or what are the most significant changes you've seen in SEO practices over the years, and how have you adapted to them? These types of questions are built to get you factual information, to get you opinions, and to get you stories, all of which are extremely useful content. That same SEO, if we're using him on an article about why backlinks aren't worth what they used to be anymore, we may ask things like, with the evolving algorithms of search engines, how do you assess the current importance of backlinks in SEO strategies? Can you provide examples from recent projects where backlinks played a crucial or diminished role in the SEO outcome? And looking ahead, what predictions can you make about the role of backlinks in SEO? And how should SEO strategists prepare for these changes? That last one's pretty important. That's how you end up with thought leadership, predictions, and opinions on whatever the subject matter is. So these answers can then be woven into your content brief, passed along to the writer along with the transcript, and you end up with differentiated, unique content through the power of just talking to somebody you work with. Any thoughts on that, Carlos?
Yeah, like we've talked about SME so many times that they're a gold mine. They're a way to differentiate. Use these more and more. Like build your bank of interviews. Even asynchronous interviews can work. They're not ideal, but because they're just hard to follow up. But if sometimes it's hard to get people's time. Send them a number of questions that they can record themselves answering. That could be best second option beyond besides a live interview where you can do follow-up questions. So just use that to create amazing content and inject great uniqueness to your content. So this is very helpful, Rick, and really appreciate the tips as always. I hope our audience find it helpful. Again, we went a little bit longer than usual today.
Oh, we sure
talking
did.
about Google.
I'm going to get blamed for this.
But Yep, it is totally your fault. I did everything perfect. You did everything wrong, Rick. No, but very, very stimulating conversation. So thank you very much, Rick, for all the tips, and thanks to the audience for listening and tuning in. Please share, comment, give us a thumbs up. But we appreciate if you can share if you like the content, please share it. So, and thanks for listening. Until next time. Thanks, Rick.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, Carlos.